All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're for
My Villain Academia, Season 5, Episode 24. Oh boy. Tenko backstory.
Shigaraki.
Yeah. When he was Tenko.
When he was not Shigaraki.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this boy killed his whole family.
Yep. He did indeed.
And some of them, maybe a specific one or couple of them
had it coming.
He really wanted to kill them. Like this was not a like no, he wanted to kill Dad. He did. And maybe even on some level the grandparents as well.
Yeah. And then also, once you've already accidentally killed your dog, your sister, your mom, what's one or two more? Yeah.
Oh my god. But in the midst of all this, Shigaraki is kind of being reborn, fighting Redestro, and in a really like freaky way. This is all like coming to a head with Gigantomachia, basically there with the Meta Liberation Army, all like wait, our leader, what's going on here? And then everyone else having their fights. Yeah. I mean, there's one episode after this, but like, I'd almost assume they have to have like at least half an episode at some point to like epilogue.
Right. For not just the villains, but also like the heroes and stuff.
Right.
Maybe in this episode, Redestro dies. And then, we just get the aftermath of bridging the connection back to the present. And, what Shigaraki does with his new organization.
So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Alright everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Well,
I just am really excited now because like a broken, wounded Shigaraki that's going to be the new like cult leader for a political front that is not just something seeking the destruction of society as it is, but also in some way it's liberation.
Well,
which is hilarious.
Because if all order and structure is destroyed, then there's no bounds.
There's no bounds as to where things can go after that.
Right. It's pure chaos because it's nothing.
Yeah. So I mean, Shigaraki's gonna win. Like that's the thing is that with the way this is going, it's set up to be actually destroyed, which is really exciting because when this show first came about, one of the things that was really, really exciting about Deku and All Might's relationship was how insular it felt from the society's rules as a whole, and basically Deku had this safe, wonderful place where he could be reborn, redefined in spite of society. And yet All For One here basically took Tenko and was like, I am going to expose you to society again and again, basically, but cradle you in the hands of your dead family members so that when the time is right and you realize what you want, you can break this whole egg open and just spill out over everything and remaking it entirely.
And one of the things that I like about that is, the whole remaking side, because Shigaraki, the fact that he like ends up disintegrating the hands and stuff, I think that is really telling of thematically what is happening, because
he still has the one over his head there at the stage, but
well, didn't he crush that one when I guess he could have more hands.
No, I know, but he didn't crush all of them on screen, so he still had one that he kept for the stage in the final moment.
Which then that has a different kind of
I think he still holds on to Daddy's specifically.
Exactly. Because Shigaraki says that this is his expression of freedom, right?
Yeah.
But really, he's still making sure that he is bound by the past, right? Every time he puts those hands on, it's holding on to it, right?
Sure.
Now, in doing so, it gives him certain other freedoms, right?
Yes.
He is not letting himself be bound by anything else.
Yeah.
Right? But he is not truly free. Right? Now you could say that if he's choosing those bars, then is that still a free choice, right?
Right.
But that could
Yeah.
potentially, I feel like this is the seeding of how Shigaraki will end up being saved, in that he's still not free.
Right. I think what you're getting at that's really interesting is that Shigaraki, in order to be free enough to actually lead the world towards this new future, basically, needed to accept the memories of the past, go through them and experience them,
Yep.
and basically gain power from them. Not unlike really Redestro's stress power gaining thing. I think
Yep.
that was kind of why Horikoshi decided to have Redestro's power be this thing here, because I really wondered if they were going to go into this, and they didn't, but it's more of just a thing that could be thematic, but it doesn't need to be a headcanon even that I accept, really. But the idea that Redestro could gather stress from not just himself, but from the environment, I thought was a really interesting mechanic to potentially have in the fight, where the reason why every time he hit Shigaraki with that stress that he had gathered, regardless of where it came from, Shigaraki could not keep the egg from cracking into his memories. So the stress would hit it, and he'd be like, oh no, why am I remembering this now? And then there's the idea of this suited man who has like a bit of like a father role to this big army,
this big cult,
that coming in and beating on him, and he's like, oh, this reminds me of something. But also that stress forcing Shigaraki into the animalistic stage of I will fight or I will die. And then when it comes down to the fight, Shigaraki had been unable really at multiple points to use his quirk in the past, because it's the kind of thing of where if you use it, you're you're
People
going to
gonna
kill
die.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has the itch, scratches himself. He's completely tearing into himself in this really sick loop. And then this forces him to
abandon it.
To abandon that. Use it all here. Break your own body to the point that it has nothing to do with the itch. It's just your using of your quirk to the point that your limiters are gone, and you be like Deku and you purplify your arm.
Oh, yeah.
He was actually free because of what Redestro did in the fight. That's just a little, like, kind of pseudo headcanon I have. But
gotcha.
I think it works because Shigaraki being freed by the stress of this, forcing it all up to the surface, he still, like you said, held on to the one hand. He's not holding on to all of them, though. He is freer than he was before.
He has willingly destroyed, because like when he destroyed the first one in the backstory, right?
Yeah.
All for One replaces it
with a new one. Yeah.
With a new one. Now he frames it as this is I wouldn't want you to lose that one. You know, this is an extra added bonus.
Right.
But could it also just be that he's like, if Shigaraki doesn't always have the reminders of what he's done and who I've sort of fashioned him to be, then is it possible that he might realize, you know what? Maybe I can actually choose what I'm going to be, and then he might choose something different.
Yeah.
So
it's possible.
I
think he also just knew how raw Shigaraki or Tenko was at the time.
Totally. Absolutely.
And he saw that if he didn't put his hands on this boy, which is as gross as I'm trying to make it sound, is that he could very easily just lose him to himself. The idea that the way he described it, that the hands were like taken off of him, he would he would start to lose himself, basically.
Well, yeah, the idea that and I loved how the episode started with this, of showing Tenko in the aftermath of what he had done, and all of the ways in which people were basically avoiding him. Right? Are you lost? I'm sure police or a hero will be here soon, right?
Yeah.
That's something where in the whole thing of if anyone had reached a hand out to me, right? The idea that
a hand.
Yeah. In so many ways, it works with what All for One ended up doing.
Right.
But the idea that it just as easily, that old lady could have actually, not been scared away. Now she probably would have been disintegrated or something. I don't know. But theoretically, she could have been like, let's talk about what's going on or whatever. That would have been very unlikely, right? But he could have been reached there. It was possible.
Yeah.
It was possible. But now it doesn't seem like it. But he still is, and that's what Deku's going to do.
Well, yeah,
That'll take a lot of time.
Yeah,
and
it will take a lot of time. It'll take a lot of work, and it'll take a lot of destruction, and in some ways, a lot of ways in which Shigaraki loses connection, I would say, to those that are close to him. And I don't think that this is a... I don't think... Well, no, let me frame it in a positive. I think this is an inevitability. One of the things that is a unique aspect of Shigaraki is that he has friends. He has people around him that do somewhat care about him. And the strength to which they care about him versus what he represents remains to be seen, you know? But one of the things this arc really focused on was the idea that Shigaraki is looking out for them. He is, however, trying to break everything and not necessarily rebuild it, because he's not thinking that far ahead. But the idea of I'm going to destroy everything. Well, what about us? No, you guys are the exception. It's like, yes, that's true, I would say. But the thing is that,
it's an inherent contradiction.
It's an inherent contradiction which will be tested at some point.
Yeah.
And I really want to see that get tested once Shigaraki is in his peak state. He's drunk on godlike power. He's infused with multiple quirks. He's still in control of his faculties. He's a world threat level kind of villain. And yet, will you still remain human, Shigaraki?
Yeah.
Will you still maintain these connections? Will these hands that you've in some ways brought to yourself be ones that hold you back, be ones that you eventually have to cast off, be ones that you unintentionally destroy?
Yep.
I feel like that's a really, really fascinating thing, is that the final hand, it could represent a whole bunch of things, and it's kind of unimportant which one it represents the most.
Or which one it actually is, because, we already got to see that it wasn't actually the hand of his dad.
No, of course not.
All for One just made a new one.
Yeah, so the actual hands themselves are irrelevant in that regard. But the fact that he still puts it over his face only to kind of show his face at the final bit, but then put it back on when he's back in his chair... it's off stage and everything.
It's a funky balance where he's kind of juggling between the two, and this is Shigaraki that just went all out, wiped out a city, nearly killed himself. Yep.
I just want to talk about that really quick here. That is such a cool way to mirror your antagonist and your protagonist.
Oh, absolutely.
I have loved every single little way that Shigaraki is basically Deku, but just different circumstances. In that he kind of effectively was the quirkless boy that discovered basically something when an older mentor figure kind of came into his life, very much kind of sidled alongside him, put a lot of extra emphasis on this boy's development in a way that you could even look at with All Might and go, he kind of used Deku a little bit.
Sure. I mean, All Might wasn't a great teacher. Nope. Like he did his best, but there were a lot of points where it's like, he's really figuring this out. He was a lot better at being the symbol of peace than at being, a tutor.
And he also didn't tell Deku what it really meant to inherit his quirk. The history, the backstory, and all that stuff. Basically, the burden he would be putting on Deku in the future that Deku only thought about from the instance of being, I'm going to get a quirk. I'm going to have a quirk. Yeah.
And because Deku was such an All Might fanboy, it wasn't as big of a deal. Nope. But if he was just some random person who was like, hey, I would really love to have a quirk so that way I feel like a whole person because I'm treated as subhuman by a lot of the society because I don't have one.
Right.
And then he gives him this quirk, and then there's all these extra strings attached. That could be really sketch,
That's kind of a bait and switch, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we have Shigaraki, who is going to be given... essentially the milder form of that, in that he knows what it is. That part where the doctor was experimenting on him to basically turn him into the perfect Nomu. He signed up for this. He knows exactly what he's getting into. It's probably in some ways going to restore his physical body from the state it is in right now,
and probably
something.
make it so that way he can resist those kinds of pesky complications a bit more in the future. Because, well, in this kind of moment, yeah, it's great because he's having this huge character moment and like, transformation and everything.
Yep.
If he fights a regular hero and they break his hands like that happened there, he's kind of fucked.
Yeah. Exactly.
like he might still manage to kill them, but okay, now you can't really defend yourself. We saw him use it through his feet, but like the point is, he's
at least
still
it seemed like it came through his feet. Yeah,
right.
At one point, yeah.
He's still a squishy meat sack, so he really could use a physical enhancing quirk, something to make him just
Something
a little bit
more
sturdier,
durable.
faster, something, right? Because he still gets absolutely punked by any kind of ranged quirk, like the pistol guy would take him out in 2 seconds.
There's edge shot.
Right, yeah.
Could just go 2-dimensional.
Sure.
Organ done. Shigaraki's over.
To say nothing about not McCree, like...
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but
that's probably one of my favorite things about Shigaraki is that even with this potential enhancement, he's still just going to be a really scary threat.
Yep.
It's the freaky thing of when they go after All For One to free him, and then All For One's like, done good. You're ready to receive it all now. And then he...
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because, like Tartarus is supposed to be able to, like, keep Shigaraki. Like, they just... orbital drop him,
can you imagine?
And everything's gone.
Dude, it's going to be evil Impel Down arc.
I mean, I am so down for that.
No comedy, no nonsense, the Brotherhood of Darkness basically showing up, to free Magneto. We're getting and he's got an army with him as well. So
right, that too. That generally helps a little bit.
Actually. Oh, so what do you want to talk about?
Before that, something that I wanted to just make sure was mentioned.
Yeah.
It's really funny how in Shigaraki's quest, and this is kind of parallel to the inherent contradiction of his I want to destroy everything, but in his quest to destroy everything, he's actually building something.
Yeah.
Like actively building something. Like he was thinking like, you know what, League of Villains, that's kind of a shitty name, I'm going to come up with something better, right? I'm going to come up with something that says what we stand for. Like it's hard to market wanton absolute destruction. That doesn't really happen. Like it just doesn't. You know, like that. How do you say that if you're not building up something that then has to kind of crush and devour something else?
Right. And this was a name that they kind of felt like they exposited a little bit just to kind of give the audience a little bit of inferring things, because we probably didn't get to see the actual stuff that was probably in the manga of them coming up with the name in a meeting or something.
But apparently Spinner helped.
But apparently Spinner actually came up with the name idea alongside Redestro and Shigaraki, which I'm like,
oh, okay.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Spinner, you got something, that's wonderful.
He was the one who put in all the things that basically took out the inherent militarization of the organization.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Probably the idea of villains as well, because that's one of the things that was probably the most interesting about Spinner way back when, was just that he was trying to be actually like Stain, whereas Toga was like just obsessed with Stain.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, you also drink blood. Like that's probably what it was.
Yeah. And yet Spinner was not necessarily a villain. Like, one of the things that you could always look at Stain specifically was that until he probably started killing people, like, he was a vigilante hero then,
Sure.
Whereas in this case, with Spinner, he's allied with villains, so he kind of just gets that attached. But now, he's in some ways maybe a little bit more legitimate, because they'll have, money on their side, so they can break a lot of the rules of society and not get punished for it. 2, they have media on their side, so they can get things framed in a way that's going to make them look even more heroic, which I loved the idea of, hey, there was a tragedy at Deka City, and a lot of the citizens rose up to solve the problem.
Because
and that's technically against the rules of what they're supposed to wait for heroes and stuff.
Yep.
But they actually get rewarded by the populace of like, way to go. Like, you guys risked your lives for this.
Right, it was some cataclysmic thing, you know, and there you go. It got a little crazy, but that also addresses the other issue, is like, how do you account for, like, literally anyone that happens to be just, like, on Google Earth and looking at Deka City when this kind of thing happens, right? You don't cover up something like that. Like
usually that stuff isn't live, though.
No.
Usually that kind of satellite footage
okay,
is
sure.
not live.
But like if you have an army of over 100,000 people that are doing anything as a unit, how in the hell do you cover that up? Well, you acknowledge that it did happen.
Oh, yeah.
There were a ton of people that all used their quirks and everything. You just, you put spin on it and everything and basically say, they're not an army, they were just civilians that rose up.
Yeah, and all they needed to do was just to convince a couple people to basically take the fall.
Yep.
It's really easy, actually.
20 out of
motivated.
110,000.
Oh, yeah. All you're going to do is go to prison. And we will probably pay you to go to prison, take the fall for it.
Sure.
And then when we rise up and take everything up, of course, you're going to be lauded as heroes.
Right, yeah.
You're going to be the people that help make this happen. There'll be people that will be lining up to be like, yep, I will be the villain. I will play that part. Yep, absolutely.
And even then, even if they were to say, no, we actually need you to die, like, so that no one can find out what happened.
I mean, we saw how fanatical some
We
of
saw
them
how
were.
fanatical they were. They were ready to charge in at Shigaraki. They would have died in droves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, hundreds.
Yeah, if not thousands, right? So, yeah, finding 20 that are like, hell yeah, I believe in what we're doing. All right, awesome. And what's funny is that because whoever chose to do that or whatever, then they don't get to see what ends up happening further down the road with Redestro.
Yeah.
Right? Because I love how it kind of set up that a lot of the people there that were like, higher up in the Meta Liberation Front back when that's what it was.
Meta Liberation Army.
Yeah, Meta Liberation Army. Yeah. They really don't like the fact that this guy now has no legs and is Shigaraki's bitch. Just like, oh, you go away? Sure. Vroom.
And yet, in some ways, that's the best character development twist for Redestro. Because when we were introduced to him...
I totally thought he was going to die.
Yeah, I totally thought he was going to die.
Because, like, he just wasn't interesting to me. I kind of was hoping he would die.
Yeah, exactly. And his character was so locked in the past, if you will, that you could tell that he didn't fit as he was in whatever the new future was that Shigaraki would bring about. Yep. And then they literally had his entire character flip because he saw that the stress that he used to accumulate power wasn't needed anymore.
Yeah.
So he was liberated from his mission. He gets to watch it happen.
Which is funny because it makes it so that in a twisted way, Shigaraki might have saved him right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Because did he even want to be Redestro? Probably not.
Probably
it was
not,
probably
no.
something where it's like that.
Pushed on him from a young age.
Yep, we've done this for 7 generations or something like that. This is what you're going to do, right? His quirk then makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Someone comes along and, granted, tries to kill him and all that stuff, and he's still kind of in a different kind of prison, right?
But the best part about it is that because of that fight, he was able to, and this is why I love his quirk so much, he was able to vent all that stress out into a gigantic classic shonen fight.
Sure.
Which then maybe even gave him the opportunity to see what actually Shigaraki was. Like, I think if he had actually kept all that in, and they had had just a conversation, I think he literally would have had too much stress inside him to actually be able to see. Because this was the point I forgot to make when I was talking about his quirk, is that stress is like horse blinders. It basically focuses
he even
your
mentioned
eyes.
that he had blinders.
Yeah, he literally had blinders on. Was that it focuses your eyes and your vision on the most simplest course to survive. That's it. It's a human animal instinct like response of I am in danger. So I need to survive, basically.
So what's the implication for the stress with regards to the fight and everything?
Well,
he had the blinders.
The fight allowed him to spend his resources that he had accumulated.
Right, in a literal power mechanic.
In a literal power mechanic.
Even though that is also something that kind of would work just with regular stress anyways. If you do something that physically exerts yourself or whatever, that's kind of the
Yeah. His quirk has the ability though to not only just take his own stress, but it seemed to be almost a thing where he would gather it, like he would attract it into himself as well.
And and then he shoots it out as a purple energy ball or whatever.
Right. I just love that as almost a meta joke on a Shonen Fight, in that the character spent his ability to the point that it initiated his opportunity for character development.
Right.
Because until that point, he literally was too blind to see the ways in which his organization, his vision for the future, even Destro's original vision for the future, maybe even what it was. Yep. So I love that, in that Shigaraki did not intend to do that.
Nope.
But the combination of Shigaraki being able to go toe-to-toe with him,
Right,
forcing him to go all out.
He destroyed something non-physical.
Yeah.
You know, which
actually saved him.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of you know, even though it's not anything directly tied to like his quirk or whatever, right?
Not at all.
It's more of a character thing.
Yeah.
If like, you know, alchemy is the deconstruction and reconstruction, right? You know, like Shigaraki plays an important part in sort of like the
cycle,
universe cycle, whatever, right? You know, in that if he is destruction
Forcing
incarnate, right? Then that is helpful in certain circumstances. The thing is that for that you actually want to limit it, because otherwise you just get nothing.
Yeah.
And then even the destruction person, great, you have no reason for your existence anymore because there's nothing. You can't destroy anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we know, because of his backstory, why he doesn't care about a future, because this is going to completely exhaust the desire for the itch. This is going to completely liberate Shigaraki from the need to turn this on himself.
Sure.
And yet the cycle will eventually hit, like you said.
Actually,
yeah,
right?
of course.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for a long period of time it
right.
will.
Yeah.
And then it will come all the way back to where he'll realize, wait. Who am I? What do I have left?
Yeah, this is a violent form of processing of what happened.
Yes,
to him,
exactly.
That has been bottled up for a very long time.
Right, and I just wanted to draw that parallel between him and Redestro, in that now Redestro is someone who might have literally achieved a form of nirvana, because
at a very high cost, but
right, because he's now abandoned also that vision that so consumed and captivated him, potentially also showing Shigaraki a little bit of, well, also maybe more the audience, but a little bit of foreshadowing of how Shigaraki can be free.
Right, and do you want to use your legs in order to learn this lesson? Well, you've already lost an arm, so...
Yeah, I mean, he's going to gain that back.
Well, yeah, but, you know.
But I am really, really, really excited that we also got the twist that Gigantomachia wasn't needed.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Gigantomachia is now just a full-fledged member.
Because of course he is, yeah.
Right, but as far as in classic kind of battle shonen style, where the villain has lieutenants and an army and a whole organization and stuff, I actually am excited about this organization.
Because we got to see it form and everything.
We got to see the merger of sorts.
Yep.
And that means that the next bits of story will be that slow, chaotic build and build and build of this spilling over into an all-out either political or philosophical or just actual literal, like,
probably all of the above.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah,
like, and that's something that I'm very curious to see how it ends up happening, because at the as the season was going on in like the earlier stages and the idea of the Meta Liberation Army was brought up and everything, I'm like, okay, that's probably what's going to be the end of the season, is they do their attack, right? And then and then we get the stuff at the ED of, okay, everything's destroyed, it's all gone to shit. And then that's sort of like the cliffhanger for season 6 is like, now where do we go from here? But given that we kind of just got the backstory and the foundations for it all, right? And what it's going to look like exactly, which I'm really glad they did, because having an organization this big can get real clunky in stories.
Yeah, very much so.
Now it's just, they can spend the story can spend as long as it wants having that downfall of hero society happen. It doesn't have to be all in one giant attack.
Nope. It can be just the unveiling, potentially, of the Paranormal Liberation Front.
Yep.
That can be the end of the season. And it doesn't even have to be a thing where they even...
Like start with an attack?
Yeah, they even have some kind of a dramatic, violent unveiling. They could. But
win the culture war, you know?
Yeah, you could You could literally just win the culture battle.
Right. And then, if you unveil yourself and then Hero Society that's been so worried about you and everything retaliates violently because they don't want you to get any more supporters because you unveil yourself and suddenly people are like,
actually, I don't hate this.
Yeah, like they seem like
curious.
They seem like pretty good people. And then suddenly armies are sent, or heroes are sent.
Heroes are sent to make hits on like specific leaders.
And suddenly people are like, wait, these heroes are literally just upholding a political agenda, and then suddenly, maybe more people start flocking to their
speaking
cause.
of flocking, Hawks is literally in this group.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a point where they're like, okay, take him out. Like, we don't care about whether you survive this. We need you to kill some people.
Well, and it adds a whole new layer to why Hawks has been trying to get in contact with Shigaraki.
Yep.
Because before this, it's like, okay, yeah, Shigaraki, head of the League of Villains, but come on, League of Villains, who really cares about them?
Who really cares?
The biggest reason that they matter is because they are connected to All for One, right? That's it. Now Shigaraki's got, he's the leader of a small nation, so it's like, okay, suddenly, Hawks needing to get in touch with him, makes a lot more sense.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. So, y'all, there we go. We have, I believe, one more episode left in this season. There's so many things they could do in this last episode just to kind of prep us for, like, whatever comes next.
One last thing that I thought was really fun from this episode. So, you know how Shigaraki has his friends and everything, right?
Right.
And he cares about them a lot. When he said, hey, you guys have money, right? It was framed in such a way that it made me think, is he actually just wanting to make sure that they get the nice sushi? Because he thought of the Hasekai, situation. And granted, they end up using the money for all sorts of other more important things. Right. But the idea that Shigaraki's like, I just put my subordinates through quite an ordeal. They deserve good food. Like, that is so, wonderfully wholesome, like, all right, eating montage, let's do this, thanks for your hard work,
it's a good sashimi,
right, yeah.
Like, get them the good fatty tuna.
Oh, yeah.
If I see any skimping going on here, you're gonna hear it from me.
Right.
They're like, yeah, whatever, okay, cool.
Like, that was just, I absolutely got a kick out of that.
That was fun because, like, we don't really still even get that much really of the connection between all of them.
Right.
Like, we've only had so much time with them.
Yeah, like twice in Toga, sure. We get their connection, we understand
we get their connection a lot.
We understand why a lot of them are following Shigaraki, maybe.
Totally.
But
seeing them more in just as friends,
right.
We need more of that.
Like I do not see
more of that.
Dobby and Spinner ever getting along.
No.
Like, just no.
Not really,
like,
no.
Yeah.
But
mutual friends, but
Yeah, exactly. But seeing more of them interacting with themselves with and without Shigaraki. Like, that's really important. So, all right. Y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the full-length timer version of the reaction, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. Any level support there gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. There's stuff also for the manga people in there as well. And also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.